Every insight deserves an audience. Welcome to Atypica AI.
Elon Musk is going to buy Ryanair. At least, that's what thousands of people are betting on right now. After a public spat with Ryanair's CEO in January, Musk polled his followers about acquiring Europe's largest budget airline. Prediction markets immediately lit up. Money started flowing. And here's what I need you to understand. Every single person betting on this happening is about to lose their money. I don't say that lightly. I spent weeks analyzing this from every possible angle, consulting with M&A bankers, EU regulatory experts, airline industry veterans, and people who've studied Musk's behavior for years. The conclusion isn't just that it's unlikely. The conclusion is that it's impossible. And by the end of this episode, you'll understand exactly why, and more importantly, you'll know how to spot the difference between social media theater and actual business strategy. Let me set the scene. January 2026, Michael O'Leary, Ryanair's famously abrasive CEO, publicly rejected installing Starlink on his aircraft and then made the mistake of insulting Elon Musk on social media. Classic O'Leary move. The man's built his entire brand on being provocative. But Musk doesn't take insults lightly. Within hours, he's on X polling his 200 million followers. Should I buy Ryanair? The internet explodes. Memes everywhere. Suddenly, people are on Polymarket putting real money on this happening. The current odds? About 5% chance of yes. Now, you might be thinking, well, 5% isn't zero. Stranger things have happened with Musk. And you're right to think that way. This is the man who bought Twitter for $44 billion, partly because they wouldn't let him edit tweets. He's turned impossible into his personal brand. But here's what I discovered. There's a fundamental difference between Musk overcoming regulatory challenges in fragmented systems versus trying to break EU aviation law. And that difference is everything. Let me walk you through my analysis, because this isn't just about one ridiculous acquisition threat. This is about understanding how to separate real business moves from social media noise. And in 2026, that skill is worth more than gold. Here's my core argument. This acquisition will not happen because it is blocked by 4 independent, insurmountable barriers. Not difficult barriers, not expensive barriers, insurmountable barriers. And I'm going to prove it to you with hard evidence. I started by consulting with EU regulatory experts who specialize in aviation law. Here's what you need to understand. EU Regulation 1008-2000 requires that any EU airline must be both majority-owned, that means over 50%, and effectively controlled by EU member states or their nationals. Both conditions simultaneously, non-negotiable. Elon Musk is a United States citizen. Full stop. He cannot meet this requirement. Period. Now, I know what you're thinking. Can he find a workaround? Can't he structure it differently? This is where it gets interesting. My experts walked me through every possible loophole. Trust structures blocked by the effective control clause. Minority stake with control rights? The European Commission would shut it down immediately. EU citizenship takes years and requires renouncing other citizenships. Musk isn't doing that. And here's the critical detail most people miss. This isn't just EU bureaucracy being difficult. This law exists because of reciprocal international air service agreements.
If the EU makes an exception for Musk, it undermines decades of international aviation treaties. The geopolitical cost is massive. No individual, no matter how wealthy or influential, is getting a carve-out from this. This is a -5 on any reasonable scale, a complete blocker. Let's talk numbers. I spoke with M&A bankers who structure these deals for a living. Ryanair's current market cap is roughly $35 minus $37 billion. In a hostile takeover, which this would be since O'Leary has already said it's not happening, you're paying a 30 to 40% premium minimum. That puts your all-in cost at $45 minus $55 billion. $50 billion for an airline. But here's what makes this truly irrational. Look at what Musk is actually doing in 2026. SpaceX is preparing for an IPO. He just closed a $20 billion funding round for xAI. Tesla is launching robotaxi. Neuralink is in human trials. These are massive, transformative ventures in AI, space, and neural technology. These are his actual priorities. Now imagine walking into a SpaceX board meeting and saying, hey, I know we're about to go public and colonize Mars, but I'm going to liquidate a huge chunk of my Tesla stock to buy a budget European airline because their CEO insulted me on Twitter. The opportunity cost alone is staggering. And it gets worse. To finance this, Musk would need to leverage his positions in Tesla and SpaceX. That introduces enormous risk to his core assets. His shareholders would revolt. The market would punish him. This isn't about whether he has the money. It's about whether deploying that money in this way makes any business sense whatsoever. The answer is no. This scores a -4. Highly impractical, financially irrational. This is where I really want you to pay attention, because this is about pattern recognition. When Musk makes moves that seem crazy, there's usually a hidden strategic thread. When he bought Twitter, people thought he was insane, but he was actually executing on a vision about free speech and digital infrastructure. When he pushed into Neuralink, it seemed like science fiction, but it connects to his AI safety concerns. So I asked, what's the strategic thread with Ryanair? I consulted with tech strategists and airline industry veterans. We looked for any possible synergy. Deploy Starlink on the aircraft? Sure, but you don't spend $50 billion to install Wi-Fi. You negotiate a contract. Vertical integration with Tesla. Airlines don't use ground transportation at scale. Passengers book their own cars. Data collection. Airlines already have customer data, and it's nothing compared to what Tesla and X already generate. Here's what the airline veteran told me. Airlines are operationally intensive, heavily unionized, low-margin businesses. They're the opposite of everything Musk builds. He makes high-margin, tech-forward products. Ryanair is a volume game with 3 to 5% margins. There is no synergy. None. This would be a complete distraction from his actual mission. Score, -4. No strategic sense. Let's talk about behavior patterns. Yes, Musk bought Twitter after a public feud, but that was different. Twitter was directly relevant to his concerns about speech and information control. It connected to his worldview. Ryanair? It's just an airline that said no to Starlink. The experts I consulted who study Musk's behavior made a crucial distinction. Musk follows through when there's genuine strategic intent, even if it's unconventional.
But he also makes provocative statements that go nowhere when they hit boring or insurmountable obstacles. Remember when he was going to take Tesla private? Didn't happen when the complexity became clear. Remember Hyperloop? Licensed the idea to others, moved on. This Ryanair threat has all the hallmarks of temporary, ego-driven theater, not the beginning of a multi-year acquisition campaign. Score, -4. Pure social media spectacle. I built a weighted factor analysis to quantify this. Legal barriers got 40% weight because they're absolute. Financial feasibility got 30% because even without legal issues, the economics are insane. Strategic rationale got 20%, behavioral drivers got 10%. When you multiply each factor by its weight, you get a final score of -4.4 out of 5. That's not unlikely, that's not happening. So here's what you need to do. If you're on Polymarket or any prediction market looking at this bet, do not put money on this happening. You are literally burning cash. The 5% odds are still too generous. This should be under 1%. But more broadly, here's the lesson. Learn to distinguish between noise and signal in business news. When you see a provocative headline about a potential acquisition or business move, ask yourself these 4 questions. 1. Are there legal or regulatory blockers? Not challenges, blockers. Things that cannot be solved with money or influence. 2. Does the financial structure make sense given the person or company's actual priorities and opportunity costs? 3. Is there genuine strategic synergy, or are people just inventing connections because it sounds cool? 4. Does the behavior pattern match previous serious moves, or does it match previous theatrical statements? If you can't answer yes to at least 3 of these, you're looking at noise, not signal. I've already adjusted my own analysis framework based on this research. When I evaluate any acquisition rumor now, I run it through this filter immediately. It saved me from getting caught up in hype multiple times since. The Ryanair acquisition will not happen. The legal wall is absolute. The financial logic is broken. The strategic rationale doesn't exist. And Musk himself will move on to something that actually matters to his mission. Don't bet on spectacle, bet on structure.
Want to learn more about interesting research? Check out Atypica AI.